Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. So welcome, friends, to episode number 178 on the Own Your Best Life podcast. So we're going to talk all about grit today. And there's something that happens as we get older. I don't know what it is, but you might have felt this. When you get older, we start to think about stagnation. We are more at risk of just wanting to be more and more safe. And the more successful we get in life, the more we don't want things to change. When we try to hold on to a lifestyle, a certain amount of money, a perceived sense of recognition or status that keeps us where we are, even if we don't love it, and even when there's some things on the horizon that seem really interesting or really thought-provoking or could open up a ton of new possibilities for yourself. And we all know that the more we try to hold on to these things, the less happy we get. And when we want a life that is really dynamic and full of experiences that feel deep and rich, it means that things are changing and we're adapting to the change and we're growing to the change. So on today's podcast, we're going to talk about building grit and about the kinds of challenges that we purposefully put into our lives so that we can grow and not stagnate, so that we can find even more freedom, joy, fulfillment in our day-to-day, and even now in our next chapter of our lives. So this past week, I did a Spartan Beast race in Killington, Vermont, and it is known to be, did not know it at the time, but now I do. It is known to be the toughest Spartan Beast in the US and possibly the world. And it was such an example to me of what is possible. It was 15.6 miles. It's supposed to be 13.1 miles or 21K. It took over 6 hours and 30 some minutes. And there was an extra mile up and down a mountain at the end. There were 30 obstacles and about 7,500 feet of elevation, which is just like up and down a ski slope over and over and over again. So that was what happened. And one of the 6 types of grit that Angela Duckworth found in her research was the grit to persevere. And grit isn't about talent or luck. If you haven't heard about grit, it is about a passion and a commitment for something longer term. When you think about perseverance, it works especially well for predicting our achievement of results. And that's what they started to find was grit was a great predictor of results. And specifically those that are challenging and meaningful. And it's not about just self-control to just do that next thing on your list. It's about staying the course over the long term, even when it looks like you're about to fail, when you are failing. And to be able to be in that stuck phase for a while, yet continuing through it, and then doing it for the long term. So for that Spartan race, it was a great analogy because I found that grit was present the whole time, from the sign up to following through. And I have found that the pursuits that I've had in athletics are mostly conditioned by grit. And it's by this commitment to executing the plan and sticking with something, even if I'm scared. And I make it meaningful because I connect it to who I am as a person and how I'm accountable to doing what I said I would do, my accountability to other people. And they've actually found that more gritty individuals are less likely to pursue pleasure, but are more likely to pursue engagement, which is to be really absorbed in a task, and meaning, which is the pursuit of activities that have more of this altruistic purpose. And so if you feel like that resonates with you, you tend to probably have that gritty nature. And when I thought about the Spartan, what I realized was this 15 plus miles of sheer effort was just what the grit literature describes. There was very little pleasure in the activity in terms of the hedonic kind of pleasure, very little pleasure in even like the training that leads up to it. There was, however, a lot of engagement. And when you're doing things that feel hard, or long, it's hard not to be engaged. It's hard to be bored when the effort and the challenge feels just high enough that you have to pay attention. It's actually one of the best ways to focus on training your brain. And it's one of the best ways to train your brain for focus, to do longer, harder activities that are just challenging enough that you can't look away without some level of repercussions. And so I had started CrossFit to add strength training to my running, yoga routine just before I signed up for the Spartan. And it was harder, and it was earlier classes, and it took sheer persistence to just keep showing up for those mornings when I knew I was shortchanging my sleep. And sometimes I'm going to tell you this because I think this is going to resonate, is sometimes we look at something and all we see are the obstacles. It doesn't have to be a physical thing. I think many of us understand that like physical nature of a hard thing. And I am not a stranger to that phenomena as well. The ability to see something and only see the obstacles. And yet, what if we realize that this is normal? We just need to keep going past one obstacle at a time to have a life that we couldn't even imagine, and to have results that almost seem impossible. And what if that was all it took? And I kept telling myself during the Spartan to just pretend that it was twice the distance, pretend that it was going to last forever, like all day long, to hope instead of hoping for it to be over, to just keep going and one foot in front of the other. And it was such an analogy for most of the things I do. It's hard at times to keep working on something that feels like it's not working, whether you're in a challenging relationship with someone, or whether you're working on a team or a project, or with a bit of work that just seems not to be making as much progress. It's hard when things don't feel good. My question to you is this: what is the alternative? Are you just going to work on things that just feel good? Quit everything right away? And that's what I asked myself. I realized that there's a part of me that knows that life just gets harder. And I can't hide more and more from life. This literally is what leads to things like suicidal ideation, is the feeling that you cannot handle what is coming up for you in life. And that is one of my biggest missions, is to help you see that before you get to that point, to know, to train yourself through all of this content, to be prepared for those moments that you're thinking, I just wanted it to get easier. Why is it getting harder? And so what if I just rip the Band-Aid off for you today, for all of us, and just say, okay, life is just getting harder. It is. And we are getting stronger. We are getting more experience, and it's not a problem. And I don't want you to think it's just physical strength, but it is all the different aspects of you can strengthen. And instead of wishing that I could coast forever, and I had this thought on a walk, I was just like, it's just getting harder. What I wish instead is that I can continue to grow to the height of my challenges. And I believe deep down that if we settled on that thought, instead of settling on the thought that I wish it would not be this way, I don't want it to be this hard, that you would move so much more quickly past all the things in your life today that feel like obstacles. I started thinking that I can just take one step forward, and that was a win. even after taking 2 to 3 steps backwards. And if I could do that, and if I could be okay, again, this is my definition of happiness when I was a kid. If I can be okay with life's realities of not everything working out well, then that to me is happiness. And this is life, my friends. We will have problems. We will have situations. There will be objectively harder moments for you than there might be for the person next to you. And we're still here. And so, how do we want our experience to be? So, I want to discuss meaning because that is such a big driver for you and for me in most of my pursuits in life. And if you identify as a spiritual achiever, you likely find meaning in a lot of things. And that's what gives you this feeling of purpose. Meaning was in such high supply when I thought about that Spartan. I was doing it at the request of a friend. I wouldn't have signed up on my own. I'm telling you that now. I'm not this person that just goes around looking for obstacle course races in Vermont so that I could spend a Saturday climbing up and down all these things. No, but it was really meaningful to do it with someone. So wanting to support someone else, to be there with someone else too, was not just about me. And then we ended up having another person join the race. Thankfully, Matt was a Spartan Beast veteran and in Killington. So he was kind enough to join us, or, reckless enough to do it again, whatever it was. He was looking for another one to do. And since he found out that we were doing it, he was coming with us. So it was the 3 of us that day. And having other people around was able to keep me focused on other people and not just on me. And this is why teams are often so successful and why many of you enjoy working with people. It helps you and the people around you become better, because we'll often do more for others than we'll do for ourselves. We rise to the occasion. We start to do that 1 + 1 = 3 kind of feeling. And so many of the changes that I've made and that my clients have made in their lives are because of their families. They care a lot about their families, not wanting to be tired or exhausted so that they could be present for their families, getting the negative voices to quiet down so they could be a calmer parent and friend and partner, and just finding more time for stillness, for meditation, for physical activity is often driven by wanting to be there for the people in their lives at the highest capacity as a leader, as a thinker, as a problem solver, as a person who could be relied on when everything hits the fan. So it's that gratification that you get when you help someone else. I think there's nothing like that. And we often don't realize when we're going through our struggles that that exact struggle, that exact thing that you're dealing with right now is at some point all going to feel completely worth it. Everyone has struggles, and everyone can more easily support other people when we've been through or can empathize with other people's struggles. To be there for people in the hard times, because you can handle hard times, is a gift. And hard times make stronger people who can help more people. So don't wish for the easy times, right? Because when we get the easy times, we start to kind of soften and forget what we're made out of. Those times will be there, but the hard times will also be there too. And so I want you to almost like lean into it and feel that sense of readiness for the tough stuff that is, I promise you, coming up in your life, whether you want it to or not. One thing that I think was really notable for me when I thought about that race was what people were saying to each other. When you ask other people how they feel, it's such a great way to get out of your head. It's such a great way to release whatever inner struggles you're going through. And I remember hearing just so many positive comments from one person to another. You're doing great, man. Keep it up. Or you really are doing great. You got this. Are you doing okay? Can I help you? Nice work. Those moments for me, I was just like, on the inside, because our words are so powerful. And we often don't realize how much it means to have someone else's support, even a stranger, and especially your friends. And when you're doing something hard, you don't even realize how much it means that someone is supporting you along the way. Often I think that, like, I get into this kind of like silo mode in my brain of just like, we just got to go and do this. And then I kind of forget, oh, like my husband's supporting me in this way. The kids are supporting me in this way. My friends are supporting me in this way. Oh, I'm not doing this by myself. There's these other people to ask help or to rely on. And so that becomes something that we have to start to adapt to, is like this kind of tribal mentality of leaning on other people for support. And it's what keeps us going. And it's not just physical, but it's mental support or emotional support or even spiritual support. And so, on the topic of spirituality, I've actually remember calling upon all the helpful beings that day, whether they were spirit guides, ancestors, angels, the universe, all of them. Please, and many moments where I was just like in it. And I would just ask them to create this like shield of impenetrability, like just be here, stop, like don't think about things, just do the things. And it worked. And I also asked her just like, hey, if you want to give me some extra boost along the way, I'd appreciate it too. I'm here, I'm going to do all the work. But, if you want to sprinkle some dust along the way, I would definitely appreciate it. And the amazing thing was, it was cold at times. Right? It was, I think, in the 50s, which is actually great running weather. And that's what I just kept telling myself. There is a lot of wind sometimes at the top of the mountain. There wasn't very much sun. It was an overcast day. And there were moments where I actually felt cold. And yet it didn't bother me that much. I wasn't wearing a lot, but enough in my brain. And I remember my hands were even swelling a lot, especially as we got to the later parts of the day, because all the blood is kind of moving to the core and to the legs, right? As you're hiking and walking and, doing all these things. And I just started squeezing my hands to move the blood and to bring back some flow. And I just remember it was just like this autopilot mode, but in a good way. Like I just shifted into this mode of, my brain doesn't make things a problem unless they're a massive problem. And in a world where we can tend to be like really hyper focused on the negative and complain about little things like, oh, how someone talks, or just watching what everyone else is doing, it's just really nice to have so many of these examples of what it's like to not focus on so many of those micro things and instead focus much more on the bigger perspective and the macro. And I think sometimes the physical endeavors will push you into that more easily. And in the mental ones, you have to train your brain to go there. You have to actually say, this is not a massive problem. Here's why. A beautiful synchronicity I wanted to mention that occurred the day that we did the Spartan race, during the race, and it was after the second to last obstacle. It was pretty cool. We thought we were done at that point, coming down the mountain. Our watches already hit 14 plus miles when this is supposed to be a 13.1 mile course. Our families were there. So we're like, okay, if the families are able to be here now, that's probably a place where we're going to end, right? And we saw, as we're coming down the mountain, my knees hurting because I think it took up to mile 10 plus. My knees were great, but then the right knee started hurting as I go down the mountain. And I'm figuring out all these ways to like move my legs and my body so it doesn't hurt as much, but it's a bit of just this grind. And we look and we see there's like punishing sandbag carry on the left. And it's like up this ski slope, across the ski slope, but then down this big hill. And in my brain, immediately I'm just like, what? And then no way I'm doing this. This is going to hurt my leg on the downhill. Like we're pretty much there at the end. And like, this is going to be the thing that like tips my leg over. And then it went to, well, the family's watching. I have to try to, I'm holding the thing and I can't believe I'm doing this, to just keep going. Don't think, just one more step. I can't put this down. And it was, I think it's like a 40-pound bag. I had to look it up because I had no idea. You just grab things on the days of and hope for the best. I think it's 60 pounds for men, 40 pounds for women. And I'm like 105, 105, 108 pounds. So it is a lot for me. So I actually thought that if I put it down, I wouldn't be able to pick it back up. So that was my real motivating factor. And the only thing I kept thinking was just let's keep going, just go to the end. And so as I finished that sandbag carry, I'm just so relieved to be done, not wanting even to feel the relief, but to just think about how can I put the bag down? Because I'm training my brain. I don't know if you guys realize this, but like as I'm doing this the whole time, I'm just constantly asking my brain to like reach for a different thought. And so instead of the thought, which I think many people have most of the time, is just like, oh, I can't wait for this to be done. I can't wait for this to be over. It's almost suspending that thought. And for me, it's not a helpful thought. Maybe for you it is, but for me, it's not a helpful thought. Relief is not necessarily a helpful thought when you actually don't know how much more it's going to be. So I try not to feel relief. I try to just stay with it and do the thing. So I was thinking, even as I put this down, I'm going to not put it down at the first bin that is closest to me. I'm going to put it on the second one. Why? Because the second one looks like it's where they, someone could grab it more easily. And then I'm like, I'm going to try to shove it as far as I can over so that on the other side, someone can pick it up more easily. And so it's almost like that little bit to be like, if I think about it in this way, it won't feel as hard. And this is actually another kind of grit, which is to be my best when I'm at my worst. And wasn't thinking about the grit literature at that time, but afterwards, and I was reflecting on how to weave in the story of that day with some important concepts that I think are really relevant for anyone who's trying to move forward in their life in some capacity or experience life in a deeper way. Grit matters. So at that point, I see the girls again because I finally put it down and I did the thing, right, where I like moved it over a bit. It's not like I thought about it that much. I just am highlighting it now because I want to point out that there's these micro decisions that we make. We might not even think they're that relevant, but I want you to notice it when you do it, because then it helps you identify as a person who is gritty, who is persevering, who is building all these types of grit. And so I see the girls, I go up to them. Just before I hug them, I find this giant feather on the ground right in front of the family. And so birds have been this spirit guide for me. They've often come up in my meditation when my family comes up. And also in real life, there's been many bird moments when we got married, with the girls, just lots of stories. So seeing this feather there was just the subtle sign to say, like, got you, you're on the right path. And to do these kind of hard things, not just physically, but mentally or emotionally or spiritually, like, no, not just a Spartan, but anything you do that feels like a ugh for you, at the end of the day, it isn't just for you. And it wasn't just for me. It's for the people around me. So I think about my family, even though it feels subconscious at times. And if it doesn't somehow help them along the way, it also doesn't feel like it makes sense to me. And I didn't realize how embedded that thought and that feeling and that care was for me, because I don't portray it in, I think, what I consider typical ways of showing that you care about your family. So thank you, universe, for just putting out one more big cue for the day. And I'll share photos. I'll put them on Instagram. I'll try to put them in the blog too. But as we finish the Spartan race, after the true actual last obstacle, which was jumping over a log of fire or many logs of fire. They cut off our bracelets, and this guy's like, good, congratulations. Now just go up the thing and down. And I think at that point, that whole race is just about what, like, what's happening now? There's this element of surprise, of not knowing, of just literally not knowing how long, far, what's happening, and when it's going to be. So it's really a mental game. And this thought for me was constant, like giving a little bit more when you think you have nothing to give. We are now, right? Like just did this massive sandbag carry. Again, you just thought you couldn't have done, especially at the end of a race. It felt like almost mean or punitive to do this massive thing when people are already super beat up. And that was just another example. I remember even heading into the race, that week was super long for me, not in terms of time, but in terms of like how full it was. I was low on sleep because I was doing a lot of work in the evenings and waking up early in the mornings. And I could just feel those thoughts, right? So this is like coaching work, training work. I could just feel those thoughts coming in that I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not in the best condition for this race. And instead, I was like, okay, that's not helpful anymore. I'm just going to try to rest this night, the night before the race, and just tell myself that there's more left in this tank. There's so much more left. And it's not just about this one week. And so I remember whenever I did these training runs in high school, I played field hockey and lacrosse, and you'd run a lot. I remember always having to sprint the last bit, even at the end of a long run. Like they would just make you sprint whatever the distance was, wherever you were, whatever happened to be. And so I just kept that up when I started running again, even on my own. And I remember if I would be running with Jay, he would be like, why would you do that? Like you're prone to injuring yourself if you are sprinting at the end. And I told him, like, I think it's just this mental thing to just push harder, even when you think you're done. So even with my running coach now, there's always another mile after the workout or a set of strides. And he said the same thing, which is, just when you think you're done, you're not. And this training is to have you know that there's more left in there. So one thing I want to know for building grit is that it's such a confidence booster during uncertain times. There will be more times in your life that you don't know things, and you will keep doing that. And there will be more times when you start to go into new environments when there's so much more you don't know than you do know, especially as you just keep stretching your comfort zone. And imagine what it would be like to have that kind of freedom, the freedom to just do things you think are massively interesting, compelling, that you're passionate about, because you're not worried about your own ability to figure it out. And so when you think about how much you change your self-perception, every time you stay committed, every time you stay consistent, that is just one of the biggest wins. It's not the thing you're doing. It is the person you're becoming through the thing you're doing. And you end up breaking your own self-imposed ceilings. Things like thinking that your health is just going to go downhill after you have kids, or that you shouldn't do interesting things, or your relationship is just this way because you're married now and you have like so many responsibilities between kids or whatnot, or that you shouldn't do anything else in your life except working and kids, or you're only a person who does work when really you're a person who does so much more. Or even thinking this thought, which is, I'm not that person who does these things, so therefore I won't do it. Or I can't be consistent, I can't push through. You can do it, but not me, right? None of this is true. And the Spartan race is just one marker. When I think about all these days of commitment, it's just one day of many days of commitment to myself. I never want my races to be the thing I just do for the day and that's it. And I think that is fine if it gets you into this mode of excitement. You're like, okay, from here on out, we're going to do this thing. That race was built upon like years that I spent moving every single day, a commitment to running consistently through seasons, through injuries, through just I don't know, different geographical regions, and a commitment to just daily effort, not just occasional fair weather moments. And that race would definitely have been way more brutal and punishing if I didn't already put in a fair amount of work that day. So, for those of you now who are like, okay, I'm going to sign up for a Spartan, right? I encourage you to do that. Maybe not the beast. I would not recommend you start with the beast in Killington, but if you want to, you can absolutely do it. And if you want to sign up for any kind of challenge that's outside of your comfort zone, just know that you are and you can build grit through so many different ways. You don't have to do this one thing. And so let me share with you what the 6 types of grit are. The first one, the grit to persevere, like keep going. The next one is the grit to control your thoughts, right? This is that mental thing, right? What are you saying to yourself? How are you saying it? What voices do you listen to and not listen to? The grit to master fear, literally going after the thing that you don't like. The grit to be your best when you're at your worst, right? When you have every excuse under the sun to not show up, to yell, to just be blah, whatever it is, like that version of yourself that maybe it showed up that day. How do you not do that? The grit to train your weaknesses. I think that's self explanatory. And then the grit to recover. And I think that's super interesting because I'm actually more focused on the grit to recover than anything else. I'm not saying like I don't work on the other things that I do and I have, and there are all these examples that I can and will share, but that's because I find for the recovery part that burnout and not wanting to slow down can actually be more challenging for people who want peak performance. And that means things like mindful movement. It means things like long walks or saunas or baths or sleep or food or hydration. These are actually harder things to do, especially when you've had a longer day. And to do it on a regular basis means I have to be more purposeful with my time. And this also means that I have to have a true active recovery protocol instead of just the drop everything and have it be focused on binging on food or drinks or screens, right, to recover. And so it's almost like just being able to know how to turn off. And I remember thinking, I don't have an off switch. I'm just on. And that's also not true, too. But what this also means is that I have to have clear goals and clear items that I'm trying to do instead of just do everything, anything, whatever email that comes in, whatever text that gets sent, whoever makes the request. I used to think that was the way to handle things. But if I don't have a clear list and a clear set of goals that I'm trying to do, I don't know when I'm going to actually stop. I don't know when and how to turn off because those things never feel done. So the process of getting things done is perseverance. There's just so much dopamine you actually get that gets created every time you check off the list of clear goals. But imagine you follow that up with putting alcohol in your body afterwards or eating food that kind of bloats you. Those are not really helpful recovery tools because then it would affect me the next day. And then I end up getting poor sleep. And then I end up waking up later. And so that's why I don't drink very much, if at all, especially if I'm coaching, and I'm coaching most days. So it reduces pretty much any kind of intake of all the things. It's also why I eat more moderately and less extreme as a rule, because I don't want to reward myself with food because I had a hard workout. And real results are like compound interest. They don't need to be this flashy thing, but they do need time to just build up day after day. And if we can just keep derailing, if we could just keep from derailing ourselves with recovery tools, right? And actually have ones that are going to positively affect our health instead of using recovery protocols that negatively affect our health. If we are able to do that, we can actually see the effects of your work add up. But every weekend, when it's like, fine, I'm done, woo, and then we go back to some of the ways and patterns that don't work so well, then it's like the progress slows down. So one thing to note too is that what was really interesting during that day is that I found that I really love being challenged. There's a part of me, as there is in you, that rises up to the challenge. And one of my favorite comments during that Spartan race was, and it clued me into the last mile not being an official part of the race, is that we were doing that extra climb up and down yet again, right? So I'm going up and down, and someone on the way down said to us on the way up, "These are the true Spartans." And I just remember being like, wait, A, that means other people are not true Spartans because they're not doing this? And B, well, that's just a nice thing to say. So thank you, mystery man who said that remark and helped us as we were climbing this, what looked like someone had just made up a trail. It did not even look cleared that day. And there was just lots of like thorns. Anyways, the list goes on. So while I've actually leaned out and I've leaned back from punishing activities over the last decade, part of me is now ready for more. And a lot of it was because of the family thing, not knowing how to recover, not trusting that I knew when to turn things off. So I've actually been building my recovery grit and not seeing that time that I spend doing that as a weakness versus knowing that I need it because A, I have amazing results, and B, there will be times when I'm pushing through and I'm already going to be running on lower stores. So I'm building trust in knowing myself and building trust that I am stronger than I realize and that I don't fear my own strength in pushing myself. Instead, I should just own it more and use it to help myself and use it to help other people as much as possible. And this makes the next several years a very interesting one. So I'm really excited to be looking at my next 5 years again with this lens of grit, what's available when you surpass your own expectations and you do what you felt was impossible. And I'm actually going to go more in depth on all of these things that we talked about today on this 5-year planning process as well at my free live event on September 30th, 2023. So make sure you sign up. Do not miss it. Even if you want to catch the replay, make sure you attend. You can go to the show notes, click on the link in there and register. I recommend you bring a friend, bring a partner. Just make sure you attend because I'm going to actually guide you through a process that helps you gain clarity in what you want and knowing the answers to the questions of what is next, who am I going to become, what do I need to help me get there is everything. So I can't wait to see you guys there. Make sure you go and you register with the show notes today. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. It'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.